Will we see any changes to the Florida Gators depth chart for the Georgia game, and who are the X factors in this one? We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. What's not to like? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And as always, Wednesday show, we're going to talk about the depth chart a little bit, or potential changes, suggestions, maybe just some problems that are on it. And not like every Wednesday, we will not have Hayden today. Hayden Hansen will be joining us tomorrow because I'm traveling and we couldn't get our times lined up. But with the depth chart, the only thing I really need to talk about is this offensive line, which is not surprising because that's been the worst part of this offense so far this season. I don't know what exactly you would change here if you're Billy Napier, Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton, but the current offensive line of Austin Barber at left tackle, Richie Leonard IV at left guard, Jake Slaughter or Kingsley Walken at center, Micah Mazuka at right guard, and Damian George at right tackle hasn't really been working much. And then you look at what's going on with this week. You're facing your toughest test all season. You're facing the Georgia Bulldogs defensive line. It's really tough. So when you look at just the offensive line hasn't been working against Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Charlotte. You scored 22 points. You should have been able to just run straight up inside zone and scored more than that. You didn't. So when you look at that, it's not the best formula for success if you're looking at this from the Florida Gators side of things. And then you watch the South Carolina game. When your backup center in Jake Slaughter is your best offensive lineman in pass protection, in pass sets, that's a bad sign. Because you also look at who you have, and right guard, Micah Mazuka. Going into this year, it was Osiris Torrance last year was the best guard in football. The second best guard, the best returning guard was Micah Mazuka. Hasn't really panned out so far this year so much. Look at Austin Barber. Going into the year, there was a large portion of Florida Gators fan base was like, oh, he's going to be a day one pick in the NFL draft. Don't think I ever bought that one, but he was still expected to be pretty damn good. And not exactly how that's been working out. Damian George was always going to be a risky start at right tackle because he was someone that we, on this show, we were like, hey, maybe he's best suited to play guard. Jake Slaughter, you can't fault too much. He's been overperforming tremendously, but he's also your backup center. If he does struggle, you expect that. He's your backup. Richie Leonard IV has been hit or miss. I love what he's been doing as a puller in any gap blocking scheme, so I love what he's been doing there. He's been inconsistent, we'll say, a bit in pass pro. But when you watch that SC game and you saw Austin Barber got beat quite a few times, there was one play, I forgot when it was, but if I'm not mistaken, I remember we were talking about it in the Locked On Gators Discord. It was Micah Mazuka he was facing Graham Mertz as Graham Mertz was getting hit. And it's just like, what is going on there? I don't really get it. So I don't know exactly what it is that what the change would be. There's a few options, and we'll talk about those. But I don't know what's up with Micah Mazuka. Uh, Austin Barber and Damian George both struggled mightily, all in the South Carolina game. It was just an ugly performance, and it sucks because it's like, oh, your highly touted left tackle, bad game. Your highly touted right guard, bad game. Your right tackle, who's been inconsistent, and you expect that from him at this point, it was a bad game. Your two best offensive linemen in that game were Richie Leonard IV and Jake Slaughter, and that shouldn't be the case when you consider what this line looked like going into the season. So I don't know what the change is. Is it just hoping that, hey, Kingsley Eguakin is healthy? We're going to put him at center, keep Barber, Richie Leonard, Michael Mazuga, and Damian George, but put Kingsley in the middle of them and hope that his veteran experience will help elevate this offensive line, even though it didn't in the games that he was able to play this year? Or do you just hope, hey, with him available, we'll be able to have our guards just helping in pass pro, help the tackles more? Is it we're just gonna keep Hayden as O line 6 here, and he's just gonna be pass protecting a lot? Do you say, regardless of whether or not Kingsley's ready, Najee Harris is gonna get the start at right guard? Do you make that change? I don't think that's a change that you make, but it's a change that we should at least suggest. Najee Harris has been one of the better offensive linemen on this team when he's been playing, and I understand that this is Georgia, and this isn't when you want to throw someone to the wolves, but maybe you think of it as this is Georgia. If you're going to be aggressive with the change, this is when you do it. Do you start Lindell Hudson at one of the tackle spots? I think what I would do is keep Richie Leonard at left guard, keep Micah Mazuga at right guard. I think you keep whoever, if Kingsley is healthy at center, and I mean healthy, then maybe, because I refuse to believe that he was healthy in either of the games he played, and I think that's a good indicator that he missed time after them. So do you go with him if he's healthy? I again need to stress that. If Kingsley Eguakin is healthy, I think that, yeah, you can give him that opportunity to play. I think if he's even 75, 80%, I don't chance it, because if he's not going to play well, then why throw him into that situation? But again, when you look at Tennessee, Kentucky, he didn't play a great game in either of those. I think what I do is keep Richie Leonard at left guard because he's been playing well. Keep Micah Mazuka at right guard even though he hasn't been playing well. Put Kingsley at center if he's healthy, and that's your interior. And if Kingsley's not healthy, I'm fine rolling Jake Slaughter. Even if Kingsley is healthy and this offensive line group wants to roll with Jake Slaughter, I'm fine with it. I think Jake Slaughter's been doing a fine job. What I think I would do is I would switch Austin Barber and Damian George. Last season, Austin Barber got experience playing at right tackle. He did that because last season, don't forget, Austin Barber was a backup, and he was rotating in with Richard Garage at left tackle and Michael Tarquin at right tackle. So last season, Austin Barber played both tackle spots. Like we know that he could do this. Last year, he played. I'll pull up the snaps, the snap count for this year or for last year, but last year Austin Barber, when he was coming off the bench, he played 159 snaps at left tackle, 487 at right tackle. He's plenty of experience at right tackle. You look at Damian George. He played left tackle against Vanderbilt when Austin Barber was out, and that was his best game of the season, arguably. Why not just switch that? I understand there's a different prestige with playing left tackle. There's an even better prestige when being good at the right tackle spot or left tackle spot. I think that maybe that's the best spot. Switch Barber and Damian George and figure things out that way. And then you also have to work with, well, now Austin Barber has to learn to combo block with Micah Mazuka and Damian George with Richie Leonard. I think that what you've been doing hasn't been working. So if you want to take a swing, why not? We are about to talk about some X factors here. We got the offensive X factor, which, as you can see on the side if you're watching on YouTube, we know what position that is. And then we're going to talk about defensive, which if you're watching on YouTube, you know which player that is. But before we talk about those, everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected, and that's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just, I don't know, hoping that you have access to medication in case of an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand, and Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com using promo code LOCKEDON. Also bringing you today's episode is FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's it. Place a $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, I promise you there's no better time. World Series is coming up. NBA season tipped off last night. The NFL is full into effect. Hockey is back. College football is here. College basketball is coming up. It's a beautiful time to join FanDuel Sportsbook, and you can bet on spreads, player props. So you can find your area that you want to bet. You can bet to hit a home run, which, I mean, not so much that anymore with the MLB, but it was a doozy this year. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. Tip off the NBA season right. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And now talking about an offensive X factor for the Florida Gators. And perhaps the most important offensive X factor. And when I talk about X factor, I don't just mean pick a star player. I mean, who is going to be someone that is going to decide this game and going to be a major factor in deciding this game? And I think that there's nobody better to pick than whoever starts at center. We talked about this a little bit last segment, whether it's Kingsley Eguakun or Jake Slaughter. I get the trade-off here because Kingsley Eguakun is your very experienced center. He is the guy that should be able to help elevate the talent around him. Because again, that's what a good center does. Good centers are not just, oh, he's great in pass protection, he's a great run blocker. No, good centers can block and elevate the talent around them. What makes Jason Kelce so great is not just that he's an awesome pass blocker or an awesome run blocker. It's that every lineman around him is better because of him. So Kingsley Eguakun, with his experience, obviously he's not going to make a Jason Kelce-like impact, but should be able to make a positive impact on this offensive line. Jake Slaughter has been the better blocker between him and Kingsley Eguakun. And I understand that, I don't know, I feel like on Twitter I see a lot of Florida Gators fans like down on Jake Slaughter, and I just don't get it. Because I understand, yeah, he's not this all-American, all-SEC caliber lineman. But at the same time, he's been, honestly, probably your best or second best offensive lineman when you look at the course of his season. He's been that guy. And I think that that's something that I don't get why people are down on him. I think it's just not knowing how offensive line play works. But he's been the better blocker than Kingsley, even last year when Kingsley was healthy. Jake Slaughter 2023 is better than Kingsley 2022. That's just what it is. But for me, I think it's more important than just the blocking here. Specifically for this game, I think it's about elevating the players around you. Where Georgia, they're going to give you multiple defensive looks. They're not just going to go, all right, got an over front here, deal with it. Like, no, they're going to give you different alignments, different number of defenders on the line of scrimmage. Sometimes it'll be 4, sometimes it'll be 5. Wouldn't shock me if it was 6 or 3, or if they just got crazy with it, went like an amoeba front. And, you got your nose tackle and just a bunch of people standing around and causing mayhem there. But Georgia's going to give you multiple looks. You need to, as a center, be able to navigate those looks and make sure that everybody knows their responsibility. Georgia's interior pass rush hasn't been great consistently, but they've been able to string together some, like this Georgia defensive line is not the Georgia defensive line from last year or even the year before. However, this Florida Gators offensive line is not the Florida Gators offensive line from last year. This is a worse offensive line for the Florida Gators and a worse defensive line for the Georgia Bulldogs. But again, this Georgia interior pass rush, not as good as they've been in years past, but they've been able to impact games. This is probably one of the games where they're going to be ready to impact it because they're coming off a bye. This is a big rivalry week. Like this is a huge rivalry, and this game has important implications. Because if Florida wins this game, which I'm not saying they will, they can, but if Florida wins this game, they're in the driver's seat in the East. Simple as that. So this is a very important game for both sides. I don't care if people go, oh, well, it's number one versus unranked. That means nothing to me. Especially when you look at a rivalry game. So if Georgia's interior pass rush is going to show up at all, I would expect it to be in this game. Then you look at Georgia they're not incredibly aggressive with how often they blitz. They do it. Sometimes I feel like they just do it for fun, honestly. When it's like a blowout and they're up big, I feel like they're just like, okay, we'll just out-athlete everybody on the back end and blitz. And we'll play cover 1, cover 0, whatever it is. But when Georgia does blitz, it's usually coming from an off-ball linebacker spot. So your middle linebacker, you're weak, you're strong, whatever it is. That means that as the center, you need to worry about that interior pass rush that, again, I believe they're going to show up in this game. But you also have to worry about the looks that they're going to give you because Georgia, they're going to try to screw with Graham Mertz and whoever is starting at center with different defensive looks. And you have to worry about when Georgia does blitz, it's coming from the off-ball linebacker spot more often than not. And so as the center, maybe that's your responsibility to pick that up in that situation. Maybe your thought is, all right, either if the linebacker blitzes, that's my responsibility, and then the D tackle goes to the left guard or the right guard, and if the linebacker doesn't blitz, then I double the left guard, or I double with the left guard, or I double with the right guard, whatever it is. You need to be able to be ready to handle those looks and keep your head up and watch what's happening in front of you. Like, there's no other way to put it. The center here is, I think, the most important offensive lineman in this game. In a lot of games, it is. I understand left tackle is like the position that gets the most glory and everything. But here, center is going to be the most important, I think, for the offensive line. You can help a tackle with a Hayden pass blocking on either side. Or you can help with Montrell Johnson or Trevor Etienne in pass protection. But again, neither of those guys have been good in pass pro. And that's, again, they're not good at it. It is, they've both gotten better. But again, they're just both not good at it. And Arliss is still trying to pick up that nuance. He's developed incredibly as a receiver. But as a pass protector, he's not great. Montrell struggled mightily in pass pro. Trevor Etienne hasn't done it that much, but I forgot which game it was. It might have been the Charlotte game where Trevor Etienne was in pass pro and just like whiffed because he tried to elbow or shoulder the dude, and then Graham Mertz got sacked because of it. But these backs aren't good in pass pro, and that's not okay, but accept them for what they are and don't ask them to do that. So center, the most important here, because you can't rely on a running back behind you to pick up that blitz. It has to be the center identifying things and recognizing them early. So for offensive X factor, it's got to be the center. We're going to talk about Scooby Williams now as the defensive X factor. But before we talk about that, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your car every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And now we're talking about the defensive X factor. We talked about depth chart changes on the offensive line, what I would do. We talked about whoever is starting at center is the most important, is the X factor for this offense this week. Defensively, I think your X factor has to be Scooby Williams. I was torn between picking Scooby or Shamar or even Jaden Hill. And it probably would have been Jaden Hill had Brock Bowers not gotten injured, but Georgia will not have Brock Bowers in this game. He's going to be missing some time with an injury that, honestly, I feel like they're just going to say, hey, no more football for Brock Bowers this year. I don't know why he would come back from this injury when he's going to be a very early pick in the 2024 NFL draft. But I think defensively, it's got to be Scooby then. It's not going to be Princely because you can scheme around the edge and you can get the ball out quickly. And I said yesterday, for Florida, if you want to give yourself the best chance to win this game, you have to blitz. You have to be able to blitz. And when the Florida Gators blitz, Scooby Williams is the most likely blitzman. He's the most likely blitzer. He's the most likely pass rusher, whatever you want to call him. He's the guy that's usually going to do it. Because when you look at the off-ball pass rushers, Scooby has blitzed 37 times as a pass rusher, because obviously run blitzes. But Scooby's been the guy. 26% of the time that he's playing pass defense, he's blitzing. You look at Shamar, that's down to 15, which also, we expected those numbers to be higher when Austin Armstrong came in, but hasn't been the case. Derek Wingo has gotten more playing time, and he's blitzed more. Maybe it's him, but I would expect it to be Scooby here. So when the Florida Gators blitz, he's the most likely blitz man, and he's been good at it too. Like he's been productive there. So expect him to be the blitz man. And again, like I mentioned, Carson Beck, Georgia's starting quarterback, if you don't know, has not been sacked this year unless he's been blitzed. It's the only time he's been sacked is when he's been blitzed. So Scooby Williams, I would expect him to get quite a bit of work as a pass rusher. When Scooby doesn't blitz, not to say when Florida doesn't blitz, but when Scooby doesn't blitz, because they will blitz without him being the pass rush man. But when Scooby isn't the one that blitzes, he's got to come up and finish plays. Like, this needs to be a clean tackling game for Scooby, because, one, Georgia's probably going to run the ball a bit. Two, like I mentioned yesterday also, Carson Beck throws a screen on almost 26% of his pass attempts. That's fine. Those are easy completions. Like, expect that to be a completion for him. But it's on you as a linebacker, as a slot, which is also why I consider Jaden Hill, corner, safety, come up and make the tackle. Like, to Scooby, when you're not blitzing, you need to be able to finish these plays. Whether it's a running back or a receiver that catches the screen, you need to be able to come up and finish the play and stop explosives. Don't allow Georgia to, throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage and pick up a first down or pick up 40 yards or anything like that. Needs to be a clean tackling game. We saw, I will say that when looking at just what Scooby's done this season in general defensively, he's had some great games. He's had some less great games, but I look at where he struggled, and it was Tennessee, which when they threw the ball, they threw quite a bit of screens. And again, he struggled specifically on those screens. He played a great game, but he struggled specifically on those screens. And then you look at Kentucky, and it's when they ran the ball a lot that he struggled. Those are the two games he struggled with, and Georgia's going to throw screens, and Georgia's going to run the football. So Scooby needs to play arguably his best game of the season here. Then we look at what Georgia also does offensively is they use a lot of motion. Not as much as the Florida Gators, but a lot of motion. And Scooby, when you watch a game on Saturday, you could see Scooby is the primary communicator. Like he's got to be quick and clear with his calls, and he has been. I'm not like he's been very good at communicating this year. You see him throw a diamond up, rub his belly, whatever the call is. You see him get that call in quickly. He's being very animated with the call so that everyone can see him. He's being loud with the call. Everything he's doing, like he's doing that part great. He needs to also continue doing that great. It's been a week, or it's been 2 weeks, but you had a bye week. So you haven't had to do that in games yet. Again, like you've had a little time to do that. You have to be quick and clear. You can't get a slow start on it. You have to see that motion, make whatever call. Again, if you're going to do the diamond, rub your belly, whatever they mean, I'm not going to pretend I know what their calls are. But when you do that, you need to do it quick, clear, and loud so that your teammates, your defense, knows exactly what their responsibilities are here because Georgia's going to go motion and they're going to snap the ball. And they're not going to go motion, give you 10 seconds to get set, and then snap it. They're going to go motion, they're going to snap the ball. Quick and clear communication. Also, I would fully expect Georgia to go no huddle against a Florida Gators defense that has had moments where they've struggled to get the call in quickly, like Utah, and even against McNeese, it looked like that a bit. So, and they've cleared that up significantly. But again, it's been 2 weeks since they've had to do any of this in live game situations. Georgia's probably going to test you out and figure out really if you're ready to play. So Scooby needs to be on point as a communicator, as a pass rusher, as a tackler. This is the most important game for him. He is the most important player on this defensive side of the ball, I think, this weekend. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with Hayden Hansen to talk about this game, and I can't wait. It's Georgia Hate Week for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work at Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.